Welcome to the Thriving on Purpose podcast, where we teach Christian entrepreneurs how to build a strong foundation of faith, growth, and skill to lead and thrive on purpose in life and business. And now, here are your hosts, certified coaches Elisabeth and Sebastien Richard.
Hi, we want to welcome you to the Thriving on Purpose podcast. I'm Elisabeth Richard.
And I'm her husband, Sebastien.
And we want to just thank you for listening in to this week's podcast. So today we're going to be talking about a topic that we rarely hear about in personal development and personal growth. We are going to be talking to you about, does quitting make you a quitter?
And we're going to be talking about the art of knowing when to quit.
I know it's a little strange because most of the time in personal development, we hear, don't quit, and, to be perseverant, and, if you're a quitter, you're a loser. And we want to...
give the other side of the coin, basically.
Yeah, we want to give you some education when it comes to this topic because... if you didn't already know, winners quit all the time.
That's very true. I mean, some of the best people, the most successful people have quit on an innumerable number of things.
Exactly. So we're going to teach you the art of knowing when to quit, because sometimes you really do need to quit and you need to know what are the different questions you need to ask yourself, right? Mm-hmm. So quitting things that are wrong, getting in the way, dead weight, distractions. Quitting the right distractions are crucial towards your success.
Definitely.
And that's why, we hear oftentimes very successful people talk about saying no.
Yeah.
And
I remember Steve Jobs said he was prouder of everything he said no to than what he said yes to.
Exactly.
That counts in the balance. It really does.
Exactly. And there's many others that have talked about that. So we're going to dive into this content to really help you, because I know some of you have been doing your business for many years, and we've all asked ourselves that question when we've been doing a business over a year, if it's time to quit, if we should continue, depending where we're at in our entrepreneurial journey, because there are different seasons, right, in the life of an entrepreneur. And sometimes these are seasons we need to go through, and it's part of quitting to go forward towards something else.
Yeah, and sometimes it's surprising. We would think, naturally, we'd think, well, if you're not successful, if it's not bringing fruition, if it's not bringing in results, it's a good time to ask yourself to quit. But I know some entrepreneurs who have been very successful who decided, you know what, it's time to quit this and move on to something else. So they would sell their business while it was at the top, and sell it for a very high price, and just say, you know what, I'm called to do something else now. I have to focus on something else. I feel this has run its course.
Yeah, I've reached the end, and you'll see that oftentimes even in seasons of different shows, right? That we kind of wonder, well, why did it stop at this season? But the writers will say, well, you know what? We just realized that we're at the end, and we want to stop where it's really successful, and it's at the point where we know we can't bring it. We just don't have any more vision for what's to come next. It has to end.
For example, the show Lost.
I remember
they should have quit before the end, because I remember a part. I remember watching the series, and I was like, "No, this is getting really weird.
Yeah,
it doesn't hold water. It doesn't work." And I think, man, it's just bad. I mean, the last two seasons, I think, were really bad. It's just...
Yeah, it was just, yeah. So that's just a small example. So you may not know this, but quitting the right distractions is crucial towards your success.
That's very important. Jot that down.
Exactly. So, Sebastien, what are the two types of attitudes towards quitting?
Well, there's two attitudes. And the first attitude is towards quitting is the stubborn person that is holding on. And why are they holding on? Well, because they believe that, like you mentioned earlier, that quitting is perceived as a sign of weakness. that it shows a lack of determination, that, you've heard the quote, was it again, winners never quit, and quitters never win, right?
Right.
So we've heard that quote many, many times in personal development, and there's a lot of good in that quote, obviously, because we're not teaching you today to be quitters. But on the other hand, you have to have discernment and know when to quit. So the first attitude is the stubborn person that is holding on. I'm not going to quit no matter what, because I'm not a quitter. Well, sometimes you just have to quit. It's a good thing to quit. Okay, so you don't want to be one of those bulldogs that hang on and hang on and hang on for absolutely no reason when there's no more point to it. And then there's the other extreme, the compulsive quitters. So those people who are quick to quit. Okay, if it's not easy, they quit. They're always looking for that new shiny object. They get enthralled with novelty. It's like they get on fire really, really quickly, but they really lose their steam very, very fast too. So they get excited and lose their steam. Get excited again, lose their steam. So they're compulsive quitters. So that's the other extreme attitude. So those are the two main attitudes. And I think we need discernment and we need balance when it comes to analyzing if we should quit or not, or keep going.
Exactly. There's a middle ground. You don't want to fall into the first attitude, and you don't want to fall into the second one, because the first one will just keep you stagnant and will stop your progression. It'll stop you from evolving and growing as an entrepreneur. And the second one will just, make you not ever reach that level of success, because you're not accomplishing anything. You're not perseverant enough. You're not determined enough. So it's really hard to understand. Sometimes I was talking to somebody last week, and a lot of people, have invested a lot of money in their businesses, and that's when they get into they can fall into the stubborn phase. I
can't quit that because I invested so much of my time and effort and money. Yeah,
exactly. And we've all been there.
Yeah.
Like I've been there too, and I'll talk a bit about my story later. And it's really hard for a person to see, clearly when it's time to quit. And so that's why we really want to focus on these different points. And, sometimes God is calling you to a time of pruning. He may be calling you to a time to pause and reflect. Sometimes we have to look at what we've been doing, and we have to ask ourselves, should we remain doing this? Should we keep on doing this? Is this giving me any fruit?
Or have I veered from where I'm supposed to be? So that time of pruning might actually readjust your aim, readjust your direction.
Exactly, because sometimes we're just not ready to quit, and that's why we don't. But sometimes we need to learn to pause and reflect and see what we're doing and look at the situation objectively and kind of stop the routine that we're doing, because sometimes we're just keep on going relentlessly, and we're not even looking at the outcome. And as business owners, we should always see if there's any fruit to what we're doing, if it's if we're growing through that, or if it's just we're just like in a stagnant place that's not evolving. Right?
So basically you have to ask yourself that question: what I've been doing, should I remain doing it?
Exactly. Am I carrying a dead dream or a lost vision for myself? Is this kind of dead in my heart and I'm just going through the motions? You have to ask yourself these questions.
So Liz, why don't you talk to us about your experience with quitting, and how hard it was for you to come to terms with the realization that you were on to, it was time to reassess and redirect and quit and embrace the new.
Yeah, so a couple of years back, I started a home decor business from my home. So I had opened myself a website, and I started a website. I opened myself an online store, and I was in the home decor industry. So I was doing some beach decor. So I was doing all kinds of accessories, all kinds of decor items for people that had beach cottages or that lived in, Florida or even in Prince Edward Island.
You were doing
coastal
pillows, coastal pillows, and seashell wreaths. They were beautiful.
Yeah, it was really, high-end stuff, like really, really nice things. But it was very expensive to maintain. It was very expensive to be in this business because there was a lot of competition. Because where I lived, I did not have the enough seashells. I had to ship out from Florida.
Strangely enough, I mean, we live close to the beach. I mean,
Yeah.
we have 1,500 kilometers of beaches all around our island, and yet the seashells were rare.
Yeah, so I thought, wow, I'm going to do this wonderful thing, bring this to Prince Edward Island, and, kind of bring like a Florida flavor if you want, but I made it more nautical, and the concept was good. But, I realized that, the hours I was putting into this business, the amount of money, thousands and thousands of dollars to buy the material that I needed.
And she had quit, just a parenthesis, she had quit her government job, and she had gotten thousands of dollars of her pension money. And she put in a lot of thousands of dollars into that business. So she invested a lot of time, energy, and self also. You invest yourself in a business. It's your baby.
Yeah, exactly. And, you learn as a business owner, there's a lot into, choosing the right niche, where you are exactly in your business, geographically, if there's a market for all that. And I was new to all of these things. So I wouldn't say that the niche was completely wrong. It's, I realized with time that I was investing a lot more than it was giving me in reality, and that I was losing money because I wasn't selling enough. And I would have had to spend a lot more money in marketing to get known on the island and to get known in the United States, and and all that, to really make it. And when I was looking at the costs in marketing per month, I realized that it was just way too much. Like, I was doing this because I enjoyed it, but also because I wanted to make money. I didn't want to lose tons of money. So, like they say, it's good to pay in marketing, but, you're supposed to have a good return. Yeah. And in the competitive niche that I was in, competing with people in Florida and, which is really, really huge, a huge market, it just wasn't working. And then I got into drop shipping, thinking that if I was going to, sell coastal furniture, and by drop shipping with suppliers from the United States, that was gonna add on to what I was doing and make the business really bigger and nicer and all that. And it was all beautiful. I got a lot of compliments on the website.
The website was awesome.
I had a lot of people following, but the sales were not there. So I had to stop and look and say, what, why are you doing this? Like, you're not only doing this for the look of it and say, hey, I have this amazing store. Like, I wanted to have some fruit out of it. And any business that we invest in, we want to have a return. Mm-hmm. And you don't want to pay a fortune in marketing either, just to get, some sales and stuff. And also, you have to look at, is this a good fit in your lifestyle? I was a mom with young children when I started. Like my Caitlin, I started when I was pregnant with her, my last baby. I was still carrying her, and then I had a newborn. So it got a lot harder to do the drop shipping, to pull this off. It wasn't really a business that I could do from home because I had, my baby to take care of, and I couldn't talk to suppliers while the baby was crying in the back, and customers and this and that. Like, you have to look at your present life and where you're at. There's a season, there's a time for everything. Maybe you're just not at that time right now in your life. You should be doing this thing, but you have your kids to take care of, or maybe there's something else stopping you. Like, there's so many different things that come into question, and for me, what I thought was going to be great as a family business ended up being something that was just frustrating, and I just had to spend crazy hours working when the kids were asleep, and it was just getting to be too much for what it was giving me in return. Mm-hmm. So, my husband would tell me, Liz, why don't you just quit and look for something else? Like, think about something else. I would see you doing this, I would see you doing that. And I was just like, no, stubborn, because I spend thousands of dollars. I don't want to quit this. I don't want to be a quitter. And I stayed like this for about a year until I started opening my eyes and saying, you know what, Liz, like, you're wasting all of these hours. You're not being with your family. You're doing this and you're doing that, and it's really not worth it. And now you can't even spend that much money in marketing to actually get a lot bigger of an audience to buy your stuff, because I just didn't have the funds to do it. I didn't know how to sew, and I actually went to learn how to sew just to be able to do the pillows and the different things with material. So I really, invested a lot of my hands into it, my sweat, my hands, and my money. So for me, it was really hard to say, you know what, I'm going to let this go, because I loved it so much, because I loved, everything that had to do with the beach. But then, I realized that what I loved mostly was to have a home near the beach, and I love the beach. And, it was like I was trying to make a business out of something that I really was passionate about. But in reality, if I focused on something else that I was good at, that would give me money back, another type of business, I would end up getting my beach home, which was my love and my passion, right? Which was exactly what I wanted. So, sometimes you're kind of on to something, but you kind of don't, that's what we're saying. Like, there's different roads you need to take, but you won't know unless you take them.
Yeah.
You won't get there unless you take them and you do it and you go all in, right?
You gotta go to the arena. You gotta fight your own battles, and in the end, you'll be the victor, or you'll decide, you know what, let's move on to something else. I lost that fight, and I'm gonna pick on and something else, take another fight.
Yeah, exactly. So you have to ask yourself those questions. Is it a good fit for your family life, or what, your present life, your current situation?
Timing is important.
Is the price to pay too high? It could be in time, it could be in money. Have you lost your purpose, your passion, your vision? Maybe it's time to quit when those things are not there anymore. When you feel like you're just doing this mechanically and you just are passionless about it. Yeah,
then you become stagnant and you lose your vision and purpose, and you're just doing it, like you said, mechanically. It's just, there's no point to it anymore. There's no why driving you.
Exactly. And if you're a Christian entrepreneur, it means you're an agent of change, okay? Quitting means that you're constantly changing, and it's not a bad thing to be in motion.
No, I mean, it's basically failing forward. The quitting we're talking about is part of the failing forward process.
Exactly.
And it's not a failure. It's a decision that is made wisely. So it's not like you're not quitting because you're giving up. You're quitting because it's the wise thing to do.
Yeah, and it might not be, a whole business. Like for me, in my case, it was a whole business, and it was, painful in a way, because I was, really turning on a page that for me was the beginning of my entrepreneurial journey, and I didn't know where the rest was going to lead. And sometimes that's hard. Sometimes when you don't know exactly what God has in store for you yet, and you just feel like it's time to turn the page, you're left to the unknown. And that could be, kind of stressful and scary. So a lot of people hold on to what they're doing until something else new presents itself, but it might not. You might have to quit and turn the page, and then take that time to reflect and ponder and pray about it for God to show you what it is you're supposed to be doing, right? Yeah,
you don't want that dogged determination that becomes stubbornness. So you have to be flexible enough to know when it's time to quit. And this is what we're going to look at right now. We're going to look at 6 points or 6 times that are going to be, okay, this is time. It's time for me to quit. So we're going to start with point number 1. It's absolutely time to quit when you become aware that this is not your dream. So number 1, when you become aware that this is not your dream. So when you wake up and smell the coffee, in other words, right? Like sometimes you've been doing something for so long and you thought this is what you wanted to do, a little bit like Elisabeth was saying about the coastal beach decor. Her dream was to actually have a cottage near the sea with coastal beach decor in it. That was her actual dream. It was not to be involved in drop shipping, although the business kind of led her down that path. Eventually, she was doing stuff that she was like, well, I never really wanted to do drop shipping and all that coastal furniture and take care of all the paperwork that's associated with that. She was starting to build a furniture store online, and she was like, am I doing the right thing? It was costing her an arm and a leg, and then another leg, and that's when the second leg went. She went like, okay, I can't stand on 2 feet anymore. I gotta stop this. So when you wake up and smell the coffee, when you realize you weren't born for this and that this is not your purpose, you gotta quit. You should quit. I mean, this is because God gave you a purpose. That purpose is the thing you should be doing. And if you realize that the thing you've been doing is not what you should be doing, well, it's pretty obvious that you should quit that thing. Okay? So it's really important that if it's not your dream, you should quit. If it's not something that makes you, that gives you that sense of completion, you shouldn't do it. And if it's anyone else's dream but your own, quit that too. I mean, obviously, if you're doing something because it's someone else's dream, your spouse, your mother's, your father's, and you're doing that thing, well, you're not walking in your purpose. So you're preventing yourself from achieving the fullness of what God has in store for you. And people like to play the martyr and sacrifice their happiness to please someone else sometimes. So they're gonna fall into that trap where they're gonna do it, and it's kind of like a way of copping out. Well, I'm doing it because it's the right thing to do, or I'm doing it for my husband or so-and-so, because you're trying to live up to someone else's expectation. Maybe it's the words of your spouse that are motivating you, or the words of your parents that keep coming back to your mind again and again, that keep you going in that direction. But if it's not your own self-talk, if it's not God's voice that you're following, don't do it. If it's not your dream, it's your lie. Let me repeat that. If it's not your dream, it's your lie. So settling will eventually cause you to become bitter, miserable, and you're going to be hard to live with as a result. So you don't want to settle for someone else's dream, okay? It has to be your dream. So number one, when you become aware that this is not your dream, it's time to quit.
Exactly. And this can, especially if you're a young entrepreneur, this could be something that your parents kind of not imposed, but some parents are really good at convincing you that you should be doing a certain thing. Influencing you because you're maybe good at computers or something, and therefore you should be a computer technician. Or I don't think that a parent, no matter how well they know their child, I don't think that they can know what it is that their child should be doing. I really think that finding your purpose is really something between you and God. And as a young entrepreneur, as a young person, you really have to figure that out. And it's your journey to live. So, even Sebastien was really, really good in graphic art, not graphic arts, but in drawing. And his parents at the time, there weren't like tons of jobs out there. And they were like, well, you should become a graphic artist. So
and let's just stay in context here. I had no guidance at the time. My parents didn't really have time to sit down with me and check out what the careers available out there, and make really an inventory of what's available. What should you be doing with your life? Do you want a guidance counselor, Sebastien? We can help you. And they never sat down with me. It's just like they were always in survival mode, and so they saw I was good at drawing. So for them, it was clear. Especially my mom. She was like, "Well, you should go in graphic arts. There it is.
Yeah, there you go, bingo.
Your life choice is settled, and that's what you're going to do." And I wasn't too much brighter. I mean, I was like, "Yeah, she's probably right. That's what I should do. So I'm good at drawing. I'll go in graphic arts." And guess what? I wasted 2 years of my life doing something that I completely hated, that I didn't at all understand. Because there's a difference between being a good illustrator and a good graphic artist. And I just couldn't understand the technique behind it and everything that had to do with the computers. And today I'm not too bad. I'm not too shabby at it because, I've grown with computers since then. But at the time I didn't have a computer. Yeah. And it was just like the programs, Quark Express and Illustrator were just starting out on Macintosh. And we had those only available at school. And I was at a loss. I mean, I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I was just going through the motions, getting grades, and even my teacher's comments. After a while, when your teacher gives you, 66%, so 67%, always under 70, you're like, and you see others like scoring 85, you can't help but compare yourself and wonder, am I in the right niche here? Exactly. Am I doing what I should be doing? And even I remember I was grilled by one of my teachers at the end of the year. I had given a project. It was an important project. And apparently I had done everything wrong. And he made it no secret in front of everybody else, pointing out, because he was analyzing everybody's projects one at a time in front of the whole class. And let's just say I didn't get good reviews from the teacher. And after that, I remember coming out of school that day, and I was like, you know what? I've been luring myself. I've been making myself believe that this is what I should be doing, but I really don't feel it at all. I really feel I'm in the wrong lane, and I had been doing it for I've been doing it for 2 years, but there's a whole year there. The second year I should not have done it all. After the first year, I should have said, okay, I'm just going to realign and go in something else. Anyway. Long story short, I was in the wrong lane, and It took me a while to discover it.
And Sebastian's strength was theology and learning the Bible and teaching the Bible. And see, that's something that at a young age couldn't really be shown to his parents. His mom saw it later on when he started preaching in church. She saw that he had a gift, but he had to learn. He had to go down the road himself.
Yeah, and also I wasn't raised in the evangelical church. So as that, it's not like me and my parents were in church every Sunday. So I was kind of like on my own path there with God. And so that grew on the side, that passion for the scriptures, that passion for teaching, that grew on the side, and my mom couldn't spot it. My dad knew I had it, but my dad was not in any position to try to guide me or be a positive influence, unfortunately. And so I was kind of left to my own devices, and that took years to overcome. With God's help, it happened, but yeah.
Yeah, so...
But that's my own story.
Yeah, so that's just to give you an example of, you cannot rely on your parents to show you what your purpose is or to guide you towards that. It's really something that you have to do as a journey with God.
Yeah.
And some things, like in this case, are not very apparent. Like your parent can't see it. Because sometimes we hear, look at what other people are telling you. Are people saying that you're really good at this or really good at that? Well, sometimes people can't spot, your strength unless you're using it, unless it's out there, unless you're using it,
Yeah.
Sometimes it's kind of hidden, and you have to be on a discovery journey and try different things before you really figure it out and pray about it and see what God is putting on your heart to do, right? So that brings us to the second time when you should ask yourself when it's time to quit. Is when you're doing it out of fear or obligation. Mm-hmm. So if you're doing it out of fear or obligation, that's obviously misguided obligation. So sometimes it's convenient to play the martyr, like we were saying earlier. You can find those excuses saying you have no choice because you're doing it for your kids. You're in this business because you're doing it for your family. It's been a family business for years. There's all kinds of reasons why we're scared to get out of our comfort zones. And we tend to lie to ourselves because in reality, our fears are dressed as excuses and obligations, right?
Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's to become an entrepreneur. Some of you people out there are listening to us, you have not yet become an entrepreneur, and you've been thinking about it, and it's been nagging at you, and you have this, good paying job. You've been in a company for 20 years, and your pension's just around the corner. Like maybe in the next 5 or 10 years, you can have your pension, and you're like, well, it would be irresponsible for me to quit at this point and start a business when I'm so close to the end, when I'm so close to pension. Well, if God's been telling you to do it, you should be doing it. I mean, I don't care what excuse you give yourself, but it's either through fear or obligation. In this case, it would be like, well, I feel obligated to finish to get the full pension, or I feel obligated because I can't quit when I've done it for 20 years. And we justify it, right?
Yeah, that's something that I actually heard somebody talking about their story this week. And I thought that was so really powerful what he had said. He was talking about his story, and he said that he studied to become a cop, and he was doing it for quite a few years. And the whole title and, the entitlement, the title, the glamour behind it, everybody's saying, wow, you're a policeman, and there's like success that, that goes with that.
Cops are automatically respected. When someone tells you I'm a cop, you automatically see them as, hey, that's a respectable person.
Exactly. And he realized that he was not happy doing that. That wasn't his purpose. He didn't enjoy it that much. And he just had something tugging in his heart. And he was talking about how he was really, really good with technical things, like doing things online that had to do with computers and different, like I won't go in detail, but anyways, it had to do with computers, and it was completely different, right, from what he was doing. And his wife said, does that make you happy when you're doing this? You're really good at it. People are noticing that you're really good at it. They're coming to you for help. And, do you think maybe you should be doing this? So it's a big decision to take. And in his case, he decided to make the leap, and he left his job as a policeman to do something he really loved. That's what I'm saying. Like, there's times where it's tugging at you. You can feel that it's not your purpose, that you feel that you're not supposed to be doing this, but for whatever reason, you're stopping yourself because maybe you've been doing a certain thing for many, many years. Maybe, your wife and everybody else around you is like, wow, this is amazing. And they're, throwing flowers at you for doing this certain position, but it doesn't make you happy. And you feel like God is calling you for more. Well, that's when you really need to evaluate, right?
Yeah, well, sometimes we hide in our obligations. It's kind of convenient. It's a good cop-out, right? Like, when, for example, like if you're a dad or a mom and you have kids depending on you, oftentimes you're going to say, well, this brings in money, and what am I like if I leave this or start something new? It's frivolous.
And it's a comfort zone.
I've given up the right to be frivolous. I have children. I have responsibilities. If I follow my dream now, well, what does that say about me as a spouse or as a father or as a or as a responsible person? Because we like to dress it up. We won't call it fear. We won't say to people, well, I'm really just really scared to do that because, I don't know, I'm 40 and I've been doing this for the last 20 years. So instead of saying I'm scared to try something new or to do something new, different, at this stage in my life, we won't say that. I mean, that would be too truthful. So we say like, that wouldn't be responsible, or it wouldn't be right of me, or God would keep me accountable if I quit on this to do something frivolous or unguaranteed or whatnot. And oftentimes we'll dress it up like that to make ourselves feel better about it.
Exactly. So that brings us to
point number 3. So it's absolutely time to quit when you realize it doesn't materialize. In other words, when you see that what you've been doing is not your area of gifting. I mean, maybe that thing you've been trying to accomplish, or that business you've been trying to lift off the ground, or that thing that you've been doing for some time now, maybe you've taken, 15 or 20 different courses to perfect yourself in that area, to actually become good at it or crush it. And maybe you've invested thousands and thousands of dollars in training and becoming better at it. And, well, maybe you're just not. Maybe you're just not good at it. I remember the movie Happy Gilmore. I know it's not a Christian movie, far from it. I mean, I'm not endorsing it here, but a lot of people have seen that. I mean, you guys might have seen Happy Gilmore. There's a scene at the beginning of the movie that makes me laugh to tears every time I see it. It's when he comes home after, again, failing at hockey. He did the hockey tryouts, and he sucked at it. And he comes home, and he feels bad. He bought some Subway or whatever. And then his girlfriend crosses him in the hallway. He says, oh, I had a really bad day. Can't you stay? She says, no, I'm leaving. I'm leaving you. and then he says, you can't leave. You can't leave me. She says, Happy, you're going nowhere, and you're bringing me down with you. She says, I know you want to be a hockey player, but there's only one problem. You're not any good. And when she says that, I just tear up laughing, because it's so basic, really. I mean, to be in your area, in something, to be doing something you're good at, it's really basic. And you're going to realize you're not doing something you're good at if it doesn't materialize, right? If nothing happens from it and you're not getting any success or any lift off from it, you're eventually going to see that, you know what? I'm not doing what I'm good at. I'm just not any good. Just like in the Happy Gilmore movie. So guess what? He left hockey and he turned to golf, and he found suddenly his quote unquote purpose in the movie. Funny movie anyway. So when you find yourself striving and not growing, that's a big point where you need to stop and say, I've been striving at this for, I don't know, a year, 2 years, 3 years, and it's not growing. I'm not growing. Nothing's happening. I'm not getting better. I'm not getting results, And if it feels too much like work, guess what? A strength, an area of gifting doesn't feel like work. It comes pretty much easy. That's why it's so important to work your strengths.
Well, depends. Like when you're working at your business, you are putting in a lot of hours.
there's gonna be things you're gonna do that are not strengths related. But as a general rule,
you're loving doing it, so it doesn't feel as much like something. Like when we say work, we mean like burdensome, like ugh, you don't want to do it kind of thing.
Yeah, of course.
You are working, you're putting in the hours, you're working hard, but you're enjoying it because it's what you love to do.
Hey, there you go. Exactly.
So,
of course, there's always
understand the difference.
There's always tasks that are related to your business that you will not enjoy. But as a whole, do you enjoy doing it and you're good at it? You have to look for that.
It's your area of strength, yeah.
So are you growing in your giftedness? In other words, if you have to buy it instead of becoming it or instead of being it, it's probably not your giftedness. In other words, if you have to invest thousands and thousands of dollars in that area for training and improving and in trying and
just to become, maybe
basic,
average
or basic, guess what? You're kind of wasting your time. So when you realize it doesn't materialize, it's time to quit. Time to lay this down.
That's why John Maxwell talks to us a lot about working our area of giftedness and to invest in our strengths, because his theory is, for example, if you're a 5 or a 6 in your area of giftedness, then if you invest in yourself and you push for more education towards that area, then you'll become a 7 or an 8 or maybe more.
There's an area of giftedness.
And like you said, people don't pay for average.
Nobody.
People pay to hear somebody speak that's, an 8 or a 9.
Yeah, if you're talking about becoming a speaker.
Just as an example, but it could be something else. So that's the importance of working your strengths.
Yeah, it could be you could have a donut shop, Nobody's going to pay for average donuts. They have to be good.
Exactly.
Oh, I'm so happy I'm going to come into this average donut shop and order a dozen of average donuts and half enjoy them. Nobody wants that.
Exactly. So that brings us to number 4. So you have to ask yourself, is there no more fruition to your vision? Sometimes things come in your life for a season. So, it could be that it's no longer alive, that you're carrying around something dead, because it's just run the end of its course.
There you go.
Right? It's polluting. It's got to the point where it's actually polluting your purpose, because it's just stagnant and it's just weighing you down and you're not moving forward. It's actually bringing you down, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes our priorities change, and that can happen, like we were saying earlier, is that, as you're growing as an entrepreneur, you're discovering more important steps, right? You're going towards more important stepping stones towards your success, and you're evolving and you're growing in your personal development. Well, obviously your brain is changing. The way you're seeing things is changing. Your perspective on different things are changing. So your beginning goal as an entrepreneur for your business may be a certain thing, and then you realize as you're changing and evolving that it's changed into something completely different, or maybe just a different kind of business, something that's related but completely different that you're going to be doing just because you feel like you're at that next level. So you might have to just quit on what was there initially because you want to go towards more important things for your business.
You always have to be flexible enough to be at least willing to reinvent yourself. Because when you, first of all, walk with God, and second of all, when you're an entrepreneur, like Liz said, you're always growing, learning new things, and reinventing some parts, at least, of your business. Sometimes it might mean reinventing the whole darn thing. And that is kind of hard to come to terms with. And therefore, you have to be flexible to accept it. If there is no more fruition to your vision, it's because the vision has run its course. And it could have been just that you're done with that and on to the next thing.
Exactly. Or it could be that God's showing you how to, add on to something in your business. Like for us, we really felt like, doing this podcast was going to reach a lot of people. We really wanted our teachings and our messages to help people. And we knew that podcasting was just a great way to share and add value to people. So we decided on picking this way of doing things, right? For you, it might be doing video, it might be doing something else in your business. So as you're growing, you're developing different things that God is showing you that you should be doing for your business. So like 3 years ago, we weren't even thinking about podcasting with Thriving on Purpose.
And that's funny the way it happened, really. It's just like we tried different platforms, and some of them we liked, some of them we didn't like as much, and then we had to evaluate what platform would be best fitted with the message we have to offer and our personality and how we like to deliver a message. And podcasting really was a good fit for us.
Exactly. And so I think the importance here is to really learn when that season has passed and that dream has sailed, to be able to move on to better things, because there's a verse here that we want to give you that...
Well, 1 Corinthians 9:24 says, run in such a way as to get the prize. And when you're a runner at the Olympics, anywhere, you're always dressed light. You don't see runners carrying heavy bags of potatoes unless it's part of the race, like a potato bag race that you need to carry it on your shoulders for the world's strongest man or whatnot. But usually in a race, the lighter the better. Lighter sneakers, light shorts, light t-shirts or tank tops. Yeah, and that's what you have to dress as, because you want to be winning that race. You want to run in such a way as to win the race. So you don't want anything that's going to bring you down, okay? You don't want anything that's going to pull you down. And if there's no more fruition to your vision, well, guess what? You're carrying dead weight. You're carrying dead fruit. You're carrying stuff that, well, let's be honest, God just doesn't approve of anymore. God wanted it in your life maybe for a season. But when it's run its course and he shows you there's no more fruition to your vision, maybe he's showing you, hey, it's time for a new harvest. You need to plant new seed.
Yeah, and he may be showing you to do something completely different, and that the first experience that you'll have experienced is just an extra tool under your belt to have extra knowledge, because you need that knowledge for something else. And that's what I realized with my business, that how much of that experience that I have used in my life ever since. I've used it many times. I've helped a lot of people understanding different things because I went through that. Yeah. Because I experienced certain things. It helped me in my present business because I can understand people and relate to people that have done the same thing, that have gone through the same path, and be more compassionate and help them understand, that there's better ways to do the kind of whatever it is that they want to do, right? So I wouldn't understand how to help them if I hadn't lived some of that, right? Yeah,
and there's this guy I know, he's a friend, and he has a podcast himself, and he's got his online business, and basically what he did is he offers services of business building online, like all the tech stuff, he's going to help you bring in your idea and the marketing and the tech and all that. He's an expert in that. And recently he's felt the call of God on his life to become a missionary. And that's what he's doing. He's following God's call on his life to become, it's really different. Yeah. That's like, okay, so what he was doing before was for a season, and he was enjoying it very, very much. But now it seems that God's calling him to something very different. And he's flexible enough to embrace that, to accept that, hey, there's no more fruition to my vision. Or maybe it was for a training ground. Sometimes God uses these seasons for a training ground for the next step in our lives. And we thought it was where we were going to pitch our tent forever. But it was actually just training ground for a certain amount of skills to acquire that are going to serve you in the next step that God has for you. So always keep that in mind as well.
Because sometimes also we're not ready for what God has to show us.
No.
Sometimes I like T.D. Jakes once said that if God showed us the end goal,
we'd freak out
because, we have to take it step by step. And he shows us step by step. We're constantly evolving and growing with him.
And no matter how mature we are as Christians, when you're walking with God, he makes you take baby steps.
Yeah.
Because you can't follow his steps. I mean, he's God. He can't take you straight to the end, knowing how fast you're going. I mean, he's God. He can go like so much faster. Like he knows exactly the end from the beginning. But we don't have this capacity. So we need to work baby step by baby step. And sometimes, yes, it is frustrating. Because sometimes we wish he would just send us an angel and like dressed in light with a big sword and say, here's what we want you to do. And that would be great. I mean, sometimes I've actually prayed for that. I was so desperate to know when I got, okay, what do I do? I'm confused, Lord, please send me an angel. And he wouldn't. And so it's like, okay, I guess maybe I'm just not ready even for that. Not even for an angel. Maybe I would faint,
Okay, so that brings us to number 5. When it's become a distraction and not your destination. Okay, so that's when you should quit. That's another point, when it's become a distraction and not your destination. So we know with the online world of social media, there's a lot of distractions out there on the news feed. There's distractions, as you start your entrepreneurial journey, there's a lot of opportunities that show up, a lot of people reaching out to you as you go forward in your business. You may have a lot of people reaching out to you that want to partner with you and kind of taking you off course, right?
Okay, I'm quitting Facebook. That's it. Thank you. Thank you for convincing me. I'm quitting Facebook. It is a distraction in my life.
As for many. So, so it's, when it comes to your important decisions, that's really important. You have to ask yourself, is what you're going to say yes to, whatever opportunity that's thrown to you, does that have to do with your purpose? Is that distraction keeping you away from your purpose? Is it helping you to go towards your purpose?
Yeah.
You need to learn to know what is useless, what is a useless distraction, so that you can find what's significant and ties into your purpose. Mm-hmm. So this is where you need to pray for discernment, okay? When you have these opportunities show up. I've had an opportunity show up in my life a year ago, and I didn't say yes unless I could see how I could use that with Thriving on Purpose, because Thriving on Purpose was always my main goal, was to help Christian entrepreneurs. So if my other business, my home business, couldn't tie into that, then that was pointless for me, because I always had in mind, I want to add value to Christian entrepreneurs, and therefore I'm not going to do anything that has nothing to do with that, right? So you really have to pray for discernment when it's time to let go of insignificant things that pull you away. And when I mean insignificant things, you have to be laser focused in what God asks you to do. There might be things that you're going to have to make decisions on, making good choices. For example, if you're spending a lot of time watching TV in the evenings, and you should be learning new books and becoming really good at what you're doing, and you need to take courses, or you need to do more personal development to get to where you want to go, you have to spend that time. You have to take that time and take it seriously. So you have to, anybody that knows anybody that's successful in business knows that they're actually very, very black and white when it comes to this. So they planned out their day. There's really very little time for any wasting of time in that day. Everything has a purpose. Everything is either going to make them healthier, stronger. So like with exercise,
healthier, wealthier, or smarter.
Yeah, exactly. Or helps them with their mindset. So they'll spend time in personal development. For those of you that are Christians, you're going to spend time with God. You're going to make that a priority, and you're going to focus on the important things in your business. So you really have to get rid of every distraction that has nothing to do with where you're going.
And sometimes a distraction might be a huge chunk of your business. If God has clearly shown you what your purpose is, and you're realizing that a big percentage of your business is not that, well, that might mean it's time to chuck your business and then transform or embrace a new business or create
that's going to bring you to your purpose. Exactly.
You got to let go of those distractions.
So sometimes you might be doing a mundane job, something that that has nothing to do with where God wants you to be. But that whatever it is He's asking you to do is going to take time to implement. Well, maybe you need to find yourself a different job that's at least tying into that purpose and helping you get towards that purpose. Not something completely unrelated that's not helping you to get towards that purpose.
There you go.
So here you have to learn to decipher useless distractions, deciding what's significant, what ties into your purpose, and always focus on those things and get rid of those. Being an entrepreneur, it means you have to apply the law of sacrifice.
Yeah.
So that means that, to get to where you want to go and grow, you're going to have to let go of a lot of different things that maybe you enjoy doing.
That are pulling you down.
But they're pulling you down and they're just wasting your time, So you're really going to have to decide what's more important. Do you want to fulfill this purpose? Do you want to do it now? Do you want to take 10 years to do it? Or do you want to really focus on it and really maximize your time and get there faster and do what you know is going to fulfill you and make God happy?
Yeah, and this distraction, getting rid of those distractions, you know what it's part of as an entrepreneur? It's part of growing. It's part of maturing as an entrepreneur. The very, very mature entrepreneurs, you will notice, like Liz said earlier, they have, how can I put this? Entertainment is not very part of their vocabulary.
No.
And I'm not saying that you have to be boring, that you have no fun ever. That's not what I'm saying. But I have to say that you have to manage your time in such a way that no second goes to waste. And the very mature entrepreneurs are masters at this. And, the Bible says in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, when I was a child, I talked like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I put the ways of childhood behind me. And as an entrepreneur, it's the same thing. When you start out, like fun or passion is a big part of it, and you don't have much of a plan when you're first starting out, because you have this zeal and this fire. But as you grow, you realize passion is important, but there needs to be a plan, and there needs to be time management, and there needs to be things that are part of a maturing process. So the distractions need to be let go.
And this all happens gradually, right? You let go of these distractions one at a time, and you make room for the important things that get you closer to your goals. And as they become more part of your routine, part of your life, I actually did a live on my Facebook. You can go check me out if you want on Facebook, Liz Rich or Elisabeth Richard. I forget where I'm on that, but probably if you just go on Elisabeth Richard, you'll find me. But I was doing a live video on this, and there's sacrifices, and I was talking about that it's painful. It can be painful to transition because it's a new way of life. You're used to a certain habit, a certain way of life, to do certain things a certain way, but this is what I was talking about. If you want things to change, you have to change. And, that's the whole part of it. You cannot have your success, you cannot get towards the goal you want to go if you're still doing the same old habits. You have to learn new habits. So reading really good books that are going to bring you closer to your goals are part of it. letting go of TV and, those distractions, at least during the week. Like, I'm not saying never ever watch TV.
Yeah, no, that's
like even
exactly.
us, on weekends, sometimes we watch a movie with our kids and stuff, and we do fun family things, right? And that's just normal. You have to, like, sometimes, disconnect mentally.
Absolutely.
But during the week, at least make that a priority, so that at least you're getting towards your goals during the week, and you're making it a priority, and you're gonna see your life change. You're gonna see success come, and you're gonna see you moving forward and growing. That's the most important part, right? Because to be significant and to add value to people, you have to be fulfilled. You have to fill yourself up. So you have to get closer to God and spend time with God, doing personal spiritual development, if you want, with him, and then personal development on learning how to better yourself and grow your mind and work on your mindset, and all of that is part of it, plus the studying of whatever it is that you need to be good at to do your work, whether it's being good in marketing, branding, whatever it is that you have to study to be good in your niche, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And like Liz said, it doesn't mean you can't watch TV anymore or whatnot, but you can just replace it sometimes. If you're used to watching, I don't know, sitcoms or stuff that's useless, and maybe you can start by replacing your TV watching time with maybe documentaries or biographies on YouTube about, I don't know, Steve Jobs or other people. Mm-hmm. That might be, sure, it's kind of a way to unhook from the big hustle, but at the same time you're still learning and you're still benefiting from some leisurely time. But you kind of marry both together. There's ways to do it that won't make you into a robot. And we're not saying you should be a robot. We're not saying you shouldn't have any fun or entertainment in your life. We're just saying that you have to put away childish things as an entrepreneur and embrace a mature mindset if you're gonna grow, and let things that are a distraction in your business, let these behind you. You're gonna have to change.
Yeah, and that brings us to number 6.
Number 6, yes. Well, it's definitely time to quit when it is clear you have to. That is point number 6. It's time to quit when it's clear you have to. What does that mean? Well, it's pretty clear when it's clear. Right? I mean, if it's clear, it's clear. No, I'm just joking here. What I mean by this is, for example, if God has clearly given you a conviction that it's time to quit, well, then it is. Sometimes it won't be necessarily God, but it can be that life or your life is going to force your hand. And what do I mean by that? Well,
you might get fired from your job.
Life happens. You can get fired from your jobs. Your company might go under. Your business, your company, it might go under. And there's a red light. Maybe it's time to quit. Or an illness. You could contract a really, really life-threatening illness that will require you to be bedridden a third longer than, more time spent in bed than actually going to work. That might be time to either sell the business, pull the plug, have a different, change the course you're on. It could be someone you love who's ill. It could be a child that will need home care, longer hours than you can actually give. Maybe you're in your business, maybe 12 hours a day you're working it, and now all of a sudden you realize that, hey, 8 of those hours will need for me to be home with the kid. That leaves only 4 hours. And then once you've all put everything down on paper, maybe you're realizing that this is just not viable anymore. It's not a viable option. You need to reinvent everything because of that blow that life just dealt you. I mean, these things happen, and you have to be realistic. And sometimes for some people, when life happens like that, they need to come to terms with, okay, it's time for me to turn a new leaf. And this is hard. This can be really, really hard. These are the times when it's clear you have to quit. Okay, or maybe maybe your business has been ruining your marriage. What if your spouse has been nagging you for the last 3 years? You're never home. This family's falling apart. Your son is doing drugs. We need you here, and you're gone 20 hours out of 24. Well, hello. Either you need to reassess your priorities and change things you can in order to be home more, or maybe you're just in the wrong business and you need to completely shift your life and quit that altogether because it's actually ruining your family. I mean, when it's clear you have to quit, it really is going to touch on the priorities in life. Number one priority is God. Number two is your family, your loved ones. And number three is your business. So if it hinges on the top two priorities, if it's affecting that, well, definitely it's a red light. And that's when it's clear that you have to quit. I mean, it's really simple. What I'm trying to convey here is like, when it's clear that you have to quit, quit.
Exactly. And that's why we had started the home business industry, because we really wanted more time to be with our families and to create some income. And we didn't want to be stuck doing a business where, we were spending like 16-hour days and crazy hours, right? So that'll be for you to decide what is best for you. But there are businesses out there that are clearly way too time consuming. And I'm not, I know realistically speaking, in the first year of business, we spend a lot more hours, we're taking things off the ground. But I mean, there are some startups, there are some businesses that, there's no leveraging, there's no time leveraging. It's just not a good business to be in if you have a young family, for example.
Yeah.
For example. That's why I was saying, like, you have to really decide what's a good fit. If your husband or wife is always telling you that, plugged into your business and you don't have any time to spend on your marriage, I mean, one day, you might find yourself divorced because of it. Is it a price you're willing to pay?
And that's another thing I wanted to talk about. I mean, John Maxwell, in his book, Put Your Dream to the Test, that's one of the questions he faces us with, is when the price to pay for your dreams becomes too high. And everybody has a threshold. Yeah. It's different for everybody. But when it becomes too high, you have to put your dream in question. And that's just normal. I mean, obviously, if it's destroying your family, if it's destroying your health, those are prices that are really big.
Yeah.
And obviously, to me, if it's affecting your health, your life with your spiritual life with God, or your family, your time spent with your wife or your marriage or your kids, in such a way that it's actually destroying those things, it's time to quit. Simple as that. I mean, God would not ask you to do something that is going to destroy either your health, your marriage, or your kids. God's not like that. So either you're doing it wrong, what he's asking you, and you need to reassess how you're doing it, or you need to stop it, because it's definitely not God's purpose for you. And man, we are the guiltiest of that. Oftentimes, we're doing it, we reason ourselves, we find the reason like, well, I'm really doing it for them. Well, if that were true, you would find a way to be there for them, and not just doing the business. I know that, like, as men, we feel like it's part of our genetic makeup, our DNA, to provide and to be responsible, to bring in the bacon, and sometimes it takes us hours away at a time from our families, and we reason it away. Well, you know what? Yeah, they're miserable. Yeah, they're this. Yeah, they're that. But I'm really doing it for them. Well, no, you're not. You're doing it for you.
I've also seen some people make it big in the network marketing industry, spending a lot of hours, whether it be in their home business or network marketing. And some do it very, very well and juggle their time very well. And they're there for their families. They've learned to prioritize, and they know what's to be prioritized and what time they are to give to their team building and all that. And some do it very well, and some others just want to be on top of things and always be the best in their category. And what ends up happening is they spend so much time team building and helping their team that, yes, the results, the success is there, the money's there, but there's so little time focused with their children that they're missing out on raising their children. Your business will always be there. In a couple of years, it'll still be, even if it's not as strong, even if it's not to the point where you want it right now because you have young kids, it will eventually be there. They are going to grow up. They're not going to stay 3 and 4 forever, right?
Yeah, and one of the solutions for that is to not build a team, but actually build leaders who will take care of your team.
Yeah,
but that's for another
topic.
podcast.
That's another podcast. But it's just to give you an example that even in that line of work, some people have learned how to prioritize God and family first, and some others have focused just on money and saying, you know what, I'm making this excuse that I'm doing this because it's for my kid and it's giving him this big house and it's giving him this and that and that. But in reality, you're doing it for your own self because your kid does not need to live in a mansion.
No kid needs that.
No, it's not a need. So that's just an example. Sometimes you have to really evaluate. And I've known some people that have burnt themselves out in home businesses and network marketing because they haven't learned how to prioritize and leverage their time. And sometimes it's the business, the type of a business that they're in, or sometimes it's the exact network marketing company that just doesn't have the right plan, the right structure to compensate people, and so people are running after their tails and running to get ends meet. So that's you have to be smart and really look at what you're doing, because I'm not spitting at all on the network marketing profession at all. And I've studied it for quite a few years, but there's some companies out there that are just not a good fit for families, and other companies are better.
It's true. Yeah, some are really better suited to either couples or single people. Yeah. And some are better suited to families. So you have to be aware of that when you choose a company. And that's the thing. Most people who enter network marketing don't really choose the company. They were offered an opportunity and they jump on it, but they didn't take the time to shop around and see what other opportunities are out there. So
we hope that this podcast was beneficial to you, that you learned a lot, that this helped you if you're at a season in your life where you're questioning if you should quit on what you're doing and you feel like there's no more fruit, no more vision, no more purpose, and you're just looking to God for answers, and you just want to know what He has in store for you, and you just want to be reignited in your heart and find that light again and that fire inside of you. I really encourage you to pray, to ask God to guide you, to stop and reflect, and to work on these to ask yourself these different questions and ponder on the message that we gave you guys today.
Yeah, and please, we're really hoping that you understood that through today's subject, that in many instances, quitting will not make you a quitter. And that's what we wanted to convey today through this episode, and to also give you the tools to develop the art of knowing when to quit.
Yeah. So we thank you for listening. We hope that you enjoyed this podcast, and please leave a review on iTunes if you're listening to us from iTunes, and share the podcast so other people can be blessed by it and it can help others. Thank you for listening in, and we will see you next week.
Be blessed
and thrive on.
Thanks for listening to the Thriving on Purpose podcast. Be sure to visit thrivingonpurpose.com to access the show notes and to discover more fantastic content. Until next time, be blessed and may you thrive on purpose.